Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of some book recommendations for those of us who are wimpy at heart, who maybe can't handle the really scary stuff, but still sort of want to get in the spooky season Halloween spirit. Let's jump right into it. This first one I think is basically like a fantasy story with zombies, and that would be Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. A lot of people know Elantris as Sanderson's first published work, but they don't really know too much about it if they haven't picked it up. And whenever I tell them it's basically zombies in a fantasy world, I feel like everybody's interest is always piqued. And I think that any kind of zombie-ish type of trope is perfect for Halloween. So the setup is that we have this place called Elantris and people called Elantrians, and they were basically like gods and goddesses among people. They were beautiful and amazing, and the way somebody became an Elantrian was that they would essentially get this thing that would happen to them, and then all of a sudden they would become one of these people, and then they would go to this magical city of Elantris. And then for some reason, one day, this has now basically become a curse, and you start to kind of sort of deteriorate, and so people still send you to Elantris, but instead of being like, wow, you're so lucky, you get to go to the magical land of Elantris, now it's like, please get out of here, you plague-infested person. They send you off over there, and you don't really know what happens to the people that go over there, but the opening establishes that one of our main characters is gonna be going there. And then you kind of find out what it's like to be there now that everybody has this curse. Next up, we have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This is a Japanese-inspired fantasy world that really explores a lot of Japanese folklore, especially a lot of the scary stuff in Japanese folklore, like the monsters, the demons, different realms, and different beings that have to be in the demon underworld. And I think that it is perfect for somebody who wants all the creepy stuff without actually being creeped out. The things are creepy in nature, but I don't think you're gonna get nightmares or be scared by these things. And the setup for the story is that we follow a very sweet and innocent but mischievous and naive girl named Yumeko, and Yumeko actually is half fox person, basically, and she has some fox powers that have to do with illusion, so she loves to play little pranks. And then we have another character who is a part of this ninja samurai shadow clan, and they have this sword that allows them to kind of hunt demons, but also there is a demon within the sword, and sometimes it grants strength to this character Tatsumi, but he can't let it really give him too much strength, because if he does, he could accidentally let the demon out and unleash it. And I just thought that the whole story, it basically feels like it's meant to be an anime. I enjoyed these two main characters so much, the way that they are paired together throughout the story and the contrast in their personalities along the way. It definitely contributed to my enjoyment because I loved their relationship. And also it just feels like an anime in that it feels very episodic because it is a traveling story. So it feels like episodes of a show, and I loved it. Next up would be Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, and I did not personally love this book, but I'm always open to recommending books that I don't love, just because I know books are subjective, and a lot of other people do love this, and you might also. This is the darkest book on this list, so it's not on this list because it's actually kind of cute, like Hocus Pocus type of scary. It actually is very dark. The premise is that we have a main character named Alex who has the ability to see ghosts, and she ends up going to be a part of a group of people that monitor the houses on this campus, this university dark academia setting, where magic is used, but it's their job to make sure it is not abused. And it's very dark. There's a lot of dark stuff to this. However, I don't think that it by any means is scary. You're gonna stay up late at night, feel like you have to lock your doors. Sort of scary. It's just very dark. And essentially it is, if magic did exist in our own world, it probably would not be a beautiful, lovely, cool thing. It would probably be really dark, and it would probably be the rich and the powerful that would use it. Next up would be Wicked Saints, another one that I didn't personally love, but if there is a time to read this book, around Halloween is the time I don't think I've ever read a book that has the word blood in it more. So the setup for this story is that you have a main character who, right at the beginning, she has always grown up in this monastery, and this monastery is destroyed by some invaders, and she is on the run. She knows that she has some very strong magic that should not be put in the hands of these invaders, and she has always believed that the magic comes from the gods and goddesses. That is how she accesses magic, and the invaders use magic by not relying on the whims of the gods and goddesses, but using their own blood. This is where all the blood comes in the story, using their own blood to draw power from and then use magic from there. And my goodness, is there a lot of people slicing and dicing up on themselves and using the blood to have magical powers. And the main journey of the story begins when this girl and then somebody from this other country of invaders, when they have to band together to try and stop the war from happening. They're enemies. She sees this person as a heretic. They're evil, but also they're so hunky. So if you're looking for a super angsty story that I have compared as, I've said it's essentially like a YA version of Nevernight, but slightly less eccentric. But also if you ship the Darkling ship in the Grisha trilogy, combine those two things, that's Wicked Saints. Next up is another story that has the word ninth in it, and that would be Ninth Reign. And this is actually one that I loved. I think it's a hidden gem. I want everybody to read it. And the reason I'm recommending it is because I feel like it takes kind of sort of a vampire-like trope and does something very unique with it. And I loved that. There's also monsters in it, but the greatness about this story is that you kind of discover a lot of things as the book goes on, and it has really captivating, fun main characters, one of which is this vampire-like person. So they live in a society where there are different groups of beings. So there's humans, there's witches, and there are also witches, of course. That also has to do with the Halloween vibe. So there's that. But the other ones that are sort of like vampires are these people that used to be basically elves, and they fed off of the sap of this magical tree, and then the tree, something's happened, and now it's basically dead. And that was what they fed off of in order to stay sort of close to immortal. And then they discovered, hey, if I drink human blood, I'll also stay basically immortal. And then it turns out human blood curses them, and they get really sick, and they die slow, agonizing deaths. But if they drink the human blood in moderation, usually they're good to go. So we have this character that was a part of this elven-like group who is now basically kind of like slightly vampire-like. It kind of has a Witcher vibe too, if you like Witcher and you like the Monster Hunter thing, and this person with enhanced abilities, enhanced strength and senses, that sort of thing. That's what this character is like, and they are partnered with a human, and then the witch, one of the characters who is a witch, and you get this team of misfits out exploring, figuring out the mysteries of the world, and I loved it. Next up is a book that I personally felt had a middle grade tone to it, despite being sold as young adult, and that would be The Iron King. And this is another one that I didn't personally love, but I know it is very well loved by a lot of individuals, and it's older YA fantasy, so I do think that contributes to the tone feeling a little bit different. And it follows this main character whose brother is taken by the Fae. They had no idea that Fae existed, but they have to go into the Fae land to rescue their brother, and it is not sexy Fae. It is creepy, scary Fae. And I legitimately, out of all the books on this list, this is the one that I was like, oh dang, at the beginning of it, because there's like creepy stuff with like, was there something in the closet? Or like, was there someone behind the door? I could have sworn I saw someone behind the door, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, yes, it's creepy. And so I really liked the beginning of the story. I did throughout the story kind of enjoy it a little bit less. It had a few tropes that I didn't completely love. However, if you are looking for something that's got that creepy vibe and you like trickster fae, you might really enjoy this. Last on the list is one that I think is filled to the brim with tropes, but I had so much fun with it. I definitely think it's the kind of book that you go into and you don't really take things too seriously, and you just kind of are in it for the ride. And I actually have already mentioned it on some recommendations for fall, but I had to mention it again, and that would be House of Salt and Sorrows. I did mention the beginning of Iron King kind of creeping me out, but this one, you know those bathtub scenes in movies that you're like, don't do it, don't go into the bathtub, and then the person goes to the bathtub and you're like, oh no, I swear something bad's gotta happen. That happens in this book for sure. And also the kid character that like sees things and you're like, oh, I think what they're seeing is real, that kind of thing. There's a lot of that. And the setup is it's a dark 12 dancing princesses retelling. So this girl is in a family with a bunch of sisters, and the sisters keep dying, and everybody thinks they're cursed. And then strange stuff starts happening, and you're like, wait a second, are they cursed? And then that's kind of the setup for the book. Like I said, I wouldn't exactly say this is a book that requires a lot of analysis or anything, but I had such a good time with it. You're just in it for the ride. That's it though for some creepy books for wimpy readers like myself. Definitely let me know if there are any books on this list that you also are like, ah, perfect, I have something for my pansy heart. Or are there some recommendations that you have that I didn't mention? But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.